o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time, July 31st, 2023. It's Monday, so we were down in Roseman, California. Sleep deprived and emotionally screwed up. Morning, you fellow zombies. Are we there yet? Alright. Gotta burp my butt. Came across an article on social media. Basically, Facebook talking about more changes and possibly potential shutting down Pirates of the Caribbean ride again. Okay, ask me the question. You would have to ask that one, wouldn't you? If you had gone how many times over to Disneyland, as much as I have, then probably you would have understood why it meant so much. In my lifetime, I've gone there too many times to count on my fingers and toes. At least I think so. In one particular 10 years swath, I've been there about 8 or 9 times in a row and enjoyed every single time of it too. And seen some of the versions that some of the rides had converted into, and some hadn't, because they were so cute and not politically correct enough to merit any changes inside like crazy. I mean, hell, it was one thing when you had Jack Skellington coming out of the closet and you had, uh, uh, Nightmare Before Christmas. I watched the movie once or twice and I couldn't get into it. And when I saw all those damn changes happening to the beloved haunted mansion, I was like, my brother liked it. And I thought I was the weird one, but I never did got into the damn thing in the first place. Thank you very much. Tim Burton was a little way out there for me, and I'd seen his work in a lifetime. But we're talking about political correctness here involving the Pirates of the Caribbean. My question is, does historical difference matter anymore? Does the historical nature of the situation and trying to make it lively really matter these days? Because right now we've gotten so insensitive about certain things that if that part of history actually happened, I think our generation or the generation prior to that and the generation after mine, whatever kind of lettering they would call themselves these days, are like, it's not politically correct. Why did they do that? Why? They should have kept the original version back then and just kept it. Why not? Because it would probably show something that we would understand about the life of a pirate or a buccaneer during those days. We envisioned and we imagined and we dreamed up something like that. Hell, we got the movies like Treasure Island back in the 60s, early 60s. During the time when we're trying to get this, you know, Pirates of the Caribbean situation going at Disneyland. Walt Disney actually had envisioned, and so did his Imagineering team during that time. I saw part of it, and I still gotta go through more of the historical database about this one, about the ride and its evolution. And I'm just going by the stuff I've read and the stuff I've experienced, and I still think we should have kept the old ways on it. We should have. Well, we do have the historical archives of it. We still have it on YouTube there, and understand how the ride was. Women were auctioned off, yes. That was back then. Yes, there was pillaging, plundering, but we also had those kind of visions happening in our films, in our media, of how we visioned it, from whatever historical records we'd gathered of how life was like in the seas. We only go by what's been told, the stories, and what records we could gather from papers to letters to artistic impressions back then of how things were. And that gave us fuel for imagination of how to view piracy the way it is. One second, I gotta get this temperature increased in this place because I am just melting right now. Give me a second. Okay, the shops they had back then. They had all sorts of fantastical stuff that people would buy and collect and play with for a long while. I remember that they had the cap guns, wooden and metal. They had long rifles because the Frontierland would have those, and the short pistols, sometimes single and sometimes doubled. I remember going over there 20, 25 years ago, something like that, and picking up a couple of pistol cutlasses, just the pistols. You could put a little roll of cap on there or something like that to initiate how they would sound, and an indentation in the metal receiving end when a hammer actually hit. I mean, you could cock those damn things and it sounded like a real thing. They had red caps on them for safety back in the 80s or earlier than that. When we had cap guns before my time, sometimes people knew that there were cap guns by the way they were used, but people used them for robberies like crazy, and people got shot by mistake. That cap guns became, and toy guns became safety hazards, so they actually had to have caps on the end of them to show to the other people that this is just a toy, and it had markings on it, stickers on it to tell you that this was just a toy. I still miss those damn things. I lost them a long time ago. Would have been a collector's item by now. Can't find them anymore. Phased them out because it wasn't politically correct, and also they were advertising guns. Well, I understand that. Of course, swords, nothing else I got rid of too. Plastic cutlasses. Imagine being a pirate with that kind of a get up there. Uh, these days, you have to make your own damn gun, or just try just to dress up as a pirate that way. But the attitudes and the history of it, people still have a problem with that. Apparently, these days we've got a different mindset of how we look at human values these days. Yes, we should not use women as chattel. We should not be using them as collateral. We shouldn't even be entertaining the idea that they were like that. But the problem is back then they were. Even women were slaves, treated as such. It didn't matter regarding the American slave thing or slave trade or not. Or the rum triangle, I'd call it. We need slaves. Some places need rum. Other places need sugar. Let's trade. We perform a triangle. We get the slaves for the rum and the rum for tobacco, and we have the sugar, and we make all sorts of weird ass swaps at this point over here back in the history. Seeing the pirate life of the Caribbean, a sliver of it, and hearing the voices that projected and emulated what the pirates were supposed to be like during those days. Part Spanish, and then English, and Irish. Privateers they were. Do whatever they wanted. There were different ports of call in the Caribbean that they would use. Tortuga was one of the places, actually. Port Port-au-Prince, I think. That would use them as bases of operation and just places to kick back. Of course, if we're going to be going by the movies that we've been seeing over the past 30 years, maybe we'd have a different viewpoint, a different way of looking at things compared to how we're looking at things right now these days. We're coming to the point where we're going to be going back in time and don't even realize it. That people's rights in different sorts and different ways aren't there. It's hard to judge history. It's hard to understand history if you keep blowing things up or blowing things away and scrubbing it down and think you know what history was all about. It was bad enough we had to look at our own history and see how bad our country was in treating others as it was growing up, as it was maturing, as it was coming out of the womb, so to speak. And our birth was hard and harsh. Yes, we had the colonies for maybe a decade, almost a century before we actually said to merry old England, you guys don't want to recognize us? Well, we're not recognizing you either. Get off. Get out of our houses. Stop taxing like crazy. We're not being represented by the government. We're going to form our own government. We're going to form our own way of life. You don't like it? Something happened. A shot theoretically heard around the world. So somebody's trying to go at the British. And all hell broke loose. And for almost a decade, we fought. Till we finally got our standing, our footing, and then being broke as shit and still owing a few countries here and there. And welching out a situation, but the 13 were born. And out came this weird ass kid. Didn't know who it was, didn't know what it was. Except it was a hodgepodge. It took us a while trying to get the paperwork filled out, signed up, and tell people, look. Looky here. This piece of paper says that we're a country. That now we got laws to deal with. But we're still broker than shit. So is everybody else when they're born. Imagine the hospital bills for a newborn. Yep. But still, we're dealing with Disney here. They had a different idea of things back then. And yes, change does need to be met. But some things are so iconic that old farts like me like the old days. We remember the olden days before the Jack Sparrow crap. And remember the days when we actually had been chasing women instead of chasing food. And we had women on sale. And burning down places. And being drunk and slovenly. Welcome to the Caribbean, boys and girls. Well, how are you going to be disguising that and dressing it up? Because it wasn't exactly civilized nation out there either. There was no civilization. There was no civilization. Of course, there were colonies of the different countries. We already established that a long while ago. It wasn't for the European explorers trying to find a different route to get over to China or to the Far East to facilitate a faster trade route, we wouldn't be here, would we? And then when we finally discover what's out here, all hell broke loose. Manifest destiny strikes, and then we want it all. Yeah. Disney was trying to go for something back then. But then again, the market and the atmosphere and the attitudes were different compared to now. Compared to now. Yeah, it's hard to look at stuff like that and understand how it is. Compare back then and now. Because oh my God, they did that. That's barbaric. Yeah, welcome to the back. Welcome to history. If you were civilized, you were probably going to get your ass robbed or done something. But there were educated pirates out there. There are educated men who took to piracy. I think Teach, Edward Teach, King Blackbeard, Sir Edward Teach, I think. There may have been a few other pirates out there who are also of educated stock, shall I say. And how they looked at the world and how the world was looking at everything else. They flew under their country's colors as privateers, pillaged, plundered, and pilfered on the seas. Some took captives, others didn't. There's a lot of history regarding how the piracy was during those days. The pirates did their own little slaving situations out of people they captured. Sometimes they let them go, sometimes they didn't. And if they signed on to the crew, they signed on to articles of the ship, telling them that this is what their code of conduct is going to be, and if not, either they got a stranded situation with a musket ball, no way to survive except being put on an island. If you can survive on an island, fine. Some of those islands may or may not have been life sustaining. If you could survive, fine. If you couldn't, well, there's that musket with the ball in it. But I just had to say something about this. It's like I'm seeing my pastime scrubbed over, scrubbed out because somebody else wants to put a Barbie scene on the damn thing. You know, everything pink and perfect and everything's Barbie. Oh God, let's get started in that damn shit, shall we? Dealing with the Barbie crap throughout my life, hearing about this stuff left and right. Okay, fine, girls play the Barbies and men don't play with toys. Actually, boys don't play with toys. Actually, we did play with toys. We played with war toys, but we played with dolls. You kidding me? Oh my God, that'd screw people up, wouldn't it? But we could play with action figures, not dolls. We call them action figures of our favorite heroes. We do military. We do cartoon. We do comic. We played with action figures. Is it politically correct to do that these days? Would we be looked at a different viewpoint at this point for playing with that? Or even collecting teddy bears and walking them in different places and taking pictures of it, or even little fur balls? Should we make changes because of political correctness in that one? So why do we have to keep looking at an amusement park ride and keep thinking it's not right? It's not politically correct. What is this? Well, what it is something that told us about a little bit of our past, maybe in a comical sense, maybe in a sense that we could try to relate to. I mean, we did have generations growing up from that damn stuff. We can still sing the yo ho ho in the back of our heads. Every time we see the Pirates of the Caribbean ride logo or anything else regarding it, there goes the pirate song in the head. and not just the Johnny Depp crap. Well, I'm not going to get into the controversy regarding this guy. And yeah, over the past 20 years or, or so, yeah, it was the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, the movie stuff that we got into. And now it's weaned out. We still got the leftovers. I'd prefer being put back to where it was, back to the original. It may piss off a hell of a lot of people. It would have been historical accurate. Drunken, slovenly, people chasing each other left and right, no inhibitions. You'd have a pirate ship off the damn fortress and firing at each other left and right. Where's the political correctness in that? Where's the problem that would scare the hell out of people? You had a ship off of a coast firing cannonade and trying to blow up the place. We did that in our wars to this day. We got sophisticated over that damn stuff, but it's still the same thing. We're firing cannonades at the damn at the fortress. We've done that for centuries. Is that a problem, or is history a problem for people who can't digest it? An invasion into port towns who are trying to be uh, community friendly to a point where we're trying to gather business from the far seas to commerce, basically trying to survive. We survived on we were survived on commerce coming from every country, every ship, bringing goods in to be traded, to be sold off, to be used up. Personnel who want to be going to place to place to place or try to settle down. And even then, you might have a port town that's going to be looking at things not the way civilized nations would act as. You wouldn't see Spain or maybe you would, maybe in certain spots, or even England, if they're trying to be that sophisticated, or maybe not, of how to treat people with respect. Then again, you look at Ireland, were you treating them with respect? Or Scotland, for that matter. And then you have the colonies being set up, the new colonies on the new mainland. They're dealing with French War. They're dealing with French Indo War. Basically, we're dealing with the Native Americans. We're dealing with the native tribes out there, the individual nations, fighting for survival or trading for survival. History is complicated. History is complicated. But Disney was supposed to be giving us a bit of a version that wasn't. It was trying to show us some fun things. But yeah, history isn't fun. Sometimes history is crueler than anything else. We have to keep putting blinders on. No wonder we keep trying to redress the damn ride like crazy. We want it to match our own viewpoints in our own time. We still want to keep the esoteric looks of it. We want to keep it to what we think the Pirates of the Caribbean should be. Are we going to be dressing up as Barbie? Barbie pirate ride? Sanitized? I swear, sometimes I wonder what the hell's going on with our damn humanity. What's screwed up in our heads that we can't even let loose. We can't even enjoy something because our own damn values get in the way. That's the problem. More and more decades pass and our generations, future generations keep coming up. The stuff we took for granted, the stuff we laughed and loved a long time ago as kids, we had to outgrow it. Disney's trying to adapt to those kind of changes. So I guess it's my generation, my viewpoints They're the old dinosaurs that were fading out through time. We're going to be buried with the bones of us petrified, and then probably put in museum places because this is how things used to be. The future generations will look at us and make judgment calls about it because they didn't have our mindset during that time. They didn't have our viewpoints at that time. They didn't understand what the hell we were seeing and going through during those times because we won't even understand their times. It's because of being a generational gap. The older you get, and the more fonder you have are your childhood memories, and the childhood of those times are a hell of a lot different than these times, and scares the hell out of people left and right. Except getting older because now you lose the perspective of things. Now you can't agree with the kids. Now you can't even understand them half the time anyway. And they don't even understand you, despite the fact you keep trying to teach them. But if it isn't politically correct or correct in some way, then we really do have an issue, don't we? So how do we deal with this shit? Drink a bottle of grog. Yo ho, a pirate's life for me.